Now, people are saying, why Nelson? Well, why do we have this bunker here in Nelson? And it's a good question to ask. I would say, though, that Nelson's bunker is not a unique bunker. It was one of 50 bunkers built across the country.
Oh, wow.
And these are federal bunkers. These were put in by the government here. The Canadian government, because of that fear, because the Cuban Missile Crisis just happened where, you know, there could have been an outbreak of nuclear war. Because there was a real fear, they thought the bunkers were going to be a good answer to this. And they were going to put people in them, select people in them.
Of course.
Oh, yeah.
These were not civilian
Like
bunkers.
vote.
There was no bunk. These were not bunkers for children, I'm afraid. They were not bunkers for spouses, family members, friends, anybody. No. These were for 8,000 people selected, trained, put on lists, ready to go.
For 8,000 people?
8,000 across the country.
It's across the country.
Yeah.
That makes
70
sense.
people
Not just Nelson.
here in Nelson.
Okay,
All Nelson people
Yeah.
for the Nelson bunker. This bunker was supposed to be the bunker really for the Kootenays, but they actually only put people from Nelson here because they didn't think as well, how much warning would people get?
Yeah.
Would
Yeah.
people get hours? Would people get minutes?
Yeah.
Would people be running here because weapons are falling, you know, bombs are falling, you know? So, 70 people. So we have some of the more obvious characters, I suppose. The mayor of Nelson, for instance.
Yeah.
People who worked in emergency services. The fire chief of Nelson. People who worked at the hospital. People who worked at the police stations, the RCMP, the Nelson City Police. So people with, you know, emergency preparedness, that sort of experience and knowledge. Also those secretaries, typists, telephonists, radio operators, people who knew about communication. Because one of the main aims of these bunkers was to reach other bunkers and other people who may be above ground, if they were still there, still functionable, and to try and relay information to them and also capture the information so they could hopefully help the people here in, well, Nelson's bunker, the Kootenays. So we have those people. There was people involved in the civil defence unit here in Nelson, because that was operational, so they also knew how to about this bunker and were trained to come here. Some of them knew how some things operated in this building. There were also people who were sort of heads of departments and or different representatives of different government aspects. The post office, for instance, had a representative. Some of the human resources people, they knew how things worked in the city and the areas. Some people have, you know, knowledge of dealing with forest fires or that sort of thing. So there were different people. There was a radio station in Nelson. Some of those were represented. For instance, the BC Tel we had in Nelson, communication skills. They knew about call signs. They knew about phonetic alphabet. They knew about those sort of things. Those were recruited, and they were all trained here, and then were signed a document to say that they would not be letting anybody else know about this. No, you can't bring your family here. You have to leave your family behind.
Oh.
You can't even tell your family about what you've been doing this week of training. It's a secret. So it could have been a difficult decision for those people if the event had happened. If there was a nuclear war starting, what do you do in that scenario? Do you come here? Do you leave your family? Could have been very hard for those people.
Yeah.
There were two ways into the bunker. You could go through these, there's a couple of these doors here. These are sealed doors, airtight doors. Or you could take a left turn and go through some showers. And the showers were designed to wash off radiation.
Oh.
One of the roles of the people who was going to be here was to go out with a Geiger counter, test radiation levels, you know, trying to see if it's radioactive, is it safe, is the air safe to breathe. And
Clicking.
hopefully be able to come back, maybe take a shower and get back into the bunker. It's a bit questionable how effective that may have been. They might have been coming out to their deaths. And, but if you had a sort of low-term exposure to radiation, it may have been okay. And they could have just washed it off. All the bunkers have these showers. Let's go through the showers and check it out in the main space.
All right.
One through. Look out for the old soaps and all that behind.
This is fall in real life, bud. Just almost like the games. Oh, this is it. Oh, wow.
70 people would have been congregating and working.
This is incredible.
All the original colours, the pipes original, very little change, just a few things we had to, but very little change. These are, over here we have kits sent to the Civil Defence Unit of Nelson. And we know that because it even has the address label still on the box. And it says there to a W.W. Waite Esquire of 40 High Street, Nelson. And W.W. Waite Esquire is a man called Walter Waite. And Walter Waite is very well known in Nelson because he started the Waite News business, which is a restaurant business which still survives here in Nelson, a different location.
Yeah.
But he was a civil defence coordinator for Nelson at that period. He was very much a man of the community. He used to go orienteering with scouts and stuff as well. Did all sorts of preparedness, emergency preparedness. As a volunteer, really, into the weekends. But he was the person who was likely to be in charge and certainly would have had a place here in the bunker. These are some of the things sent out to him and his crew to try and help with maybe a natural emergency. Because these civil defence people were not just thinking about nuclear attacks, they're thinking about fires.
Yeah.
Obviously, there's always been a problem here in Nelson, flooding as well. So we have some of the things here that may have been able to help victims or even some of the responders who were dealing with those issues. So we have fire buckets, asbestos-lined gloves here. Nice fireproof, but behind the plastic, fortunately. We have lanterns, we have can openers.
Important.
The meat grind is quite interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's something you don't see every day.
Paper plates and cups that look like we could still get these.
Exactly, very
Yeah.
similar to today's ones, clean supplies. And these actually become tables as well, which is quite interesting. Because you can see these are the legs for the tables, they screw into the corners.
Oh, yeah.
If you look over just above there, we actually have some set up like there would be. So it could be a bit of a field kitchen to help, helping people. Let's go over here and check out some more things. So here's a photograph inside the bunker. Now, as I say, this was a secret. There aren't too many photographs, but there are a few photographs we have discovered inside the bunker. And this is a training course. So this is the people doing what I was saying there, training to be in this space, 1970. The bunker itself was built 63-64 was the period the bunker was actually built, we know. The grey building that we're in now actually pre-exists that because it was built in the mid-50s. And they actually converted the space into a bunker from offices. We know that as well. But here we have some of the people. Here's the fire chief. Some people, they worked in the radio. What do you think about this photograph, though? What do you think? How does it represent our community?
I think it represents that we were pretty strong back in the day.
Yeah, it says that. I think, but it also shows that most of the people who were going to be in the bunker were men.
Yep.
You can see that there. We have 6 women and we have about 25 or so men there.
Keep it equal.
And you can see that was reflective of sort of the key positions in government, in the workforce there. And also, yes, largely white. So not too many indigenous, black. There's a couple we have noticed of Asian descent, but that's about it really. It's not a lot of diversity going on there.
No.
And we also see in the dormitory rooms, the 3 dormitory rooms where people just slept, because of course there were ranges of people sleeping down here. So we had bunk beds in 3 rooms. These 2 rooms over here, the larger rooms were for men. The smaller room over there was for women. So we can see that there. So maybe 3, 4, that's what we think. This is our Commander-in-Chief, if you will, Deef the Chief. This is John Diefenbake, our Prime Minister.
Oh, yeah.
And he was very much
Diefenbunker.
associated with the bunkers So much so that they, well, actually the name was very shortly after coined the Defen bunkers after John Diefenbake.
Yeah.
So there we go. This bunker is often known as a Defen bunker. This over here is the office of the person in charge. So Walter Wake, we think, would have been the person in there. We have a teletype operating machine, like a cross between a lot of a typewriter and a computer, sort of state of the art. A machine for sending messages out is in there, and some other things. The phone is the phone that was just there.
Oh, that is so cool. That's incredible. This from the 50s and 60s. Kind of a scary time. Think nothing
Over
happened.
here, guys, we have these couple of maps which I need to point out. So this is the map of Nelson. You can see here, and it's from 1963 when these things were installed.
Oh yeah, I saw that one by the police station, and then they took it off.
They did. The story goes that there were actually 5 sirens installed in Nelson. The X shows where they were going in. These circles are supposed to be the sound radius from the sirens sounding off. And those sirens would warn the general population about an impending attack, or a fire coming down the mountain perhaps, or a flood wave coming in, something like that.
Yeah.
A major event. The fire service would get a signal to sound them off, and they would sound. Never actually sounded in anger for an emergency in Nelson. But they were there and ready to go, and almost every community across Canada had these sirens, and across much of the world, sirens were installed and were ready to warn people. Yes, this one, which used to be over here, where there used to be an RCMP office, it's now the library and police station building in Nelson, if you know that. It was taken down last year, largely because a woodpecker was pecking the pole that it was on.
Yeah, they would do that.
Yeah, exactly. So that happened. So the neighbours got slightly worried that this big siren was going to come and destroy their house or something. So it was taken down, but we got word of that going on, and we said, well, can we have the siren here in the bunker? And here it is. So that's our siren.
Oh wow. Those
Now-
things were probably loud back in the day. My grandparents, they were born here in like 1947.
Oh
And
yeah.
yeah, they heard it. It's loud as heck.
Yeah, it would go off for testing, and sometimes it went off by accident as well, we know. So they would measure people's responses, and a lot of lack of responses on some of them on these test days.
All the
there are
defense
some
zones.
sirens which still sound for various reasons across the community. These Nelson sirens were disconnected back in the 1990s.
Yeah.
Now you would probably expect to get a message on your cell phone. There's a broadcast message,
Yeah.
an emergency, and that's how it operates nowadays usually.
We have way better technology now than back then. Way better
I
now.
hope that we would still have some of these as default though, because
Yeah.
if cell service was turned off.
Well, that's the thing as well. You know, if you've got your cell phone on you, I mean,
Yeah.
that's true.
And if cell service was rubbed out by an EMP or something, you're kind of hooped.
And there are some which still operate. I know for tsunamis and things like that on the coast.
Yeah.
So there are still some of them operational. But Nelson's, I'm afraid not. So keep your cell phone on you all the time. There you go.
So be careful with her.
Yeah. This is a map of BC, and it shows where the bunkers were across our province. So we have 50 bunkers across the country, and we have 6 in BC. So Nelson,
6.
so Kamloops is our nearest one. That was also in the basement of a post office building. It's gone now, I'm afraid. Prince George,
That would be a big
Prince
one.
Rupert. There are a couple in Lower Mainland, Abbotsford Way, between Nanaimo and Victoria, there's one.
Oh yeah, that's
But there's no bunkers in Victoria, Vancouver, Kelowna. Those cities are often seen as targets, so they kept them out of the big target areas and put them in lesser cities, if you will.
Yeah.
You know, they were obviously thinking about what would happen, because if there was bombs falling, these bunkers would not survive if on direct hits.
yeah these.
Nelson would be gone, I'm afraid, if there was a nuclear weapon hitting.
Yeah, this bunker I can tell probably not strong enough for that.
No, exactly. There's no reinforced concrete. We have a couple of airtight doors, we're underground. So there's a little bit of protection,
But not
but
much.
not a lot really, not a lot, no, we're not particularly strong here. The Naivo had a bit more protection, that was supposed to be the bunker what all these bunkers would report to. And then there was a bunker that was not protected
That's like the main
in
one.
Cap, Ontario, near Ottawa, where it was like the actual government, the Prime Minister would have been trying to coordinate efforts. And there were 500 people that could be in that bunker.
Whoa.
4-story facility. It's now a museum. Of course, it's called the Deacon Bunker Museum. So you can visit that if you want, if you're not on there. Yeah, so it's just about 50 miles outside of Ottawa. There's even a train that would take the government all the way from the Parliament straight into the woods, and then they would go down to the...
Oh, sweet.
So all sorts of preparations were in
Express
place.
train.
Yeah, express train indeed.
Yeah, we're from across the border from Spokane.
Oh, Spokane, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, cool. All right, let's go and check out some stuff.
This is so cool. This is like Fallout, but not as deep.
Yeah.
Can you imagine if we had like a big opening door?
Oh, go.
Gas, man.
Yeah. Hopefully we don't have to use this anymore.
I like
You
to have
never
a
know.
nursing
Still
home.
happen.
Yeah, with the idiots in power down the
These
states.
old clothing.
Old clothing back in the day. Yeah, guys, this is deep history here.
Astronaut on the moon.
Yeah, and there's still
It's the
people.
old newspaper.
Hey, there's people that think that this was fake.
July 21st, 1969. That
I know, and there's still people that think that the moon landing was faked. How is that fake?
old comic books. Old comic books.
Sergeant Rock? Oh, yeah.
30 cents back in the day.
Oh, wow.
The Beatles.
Oh, the Beatles, that was a good one.
I think, didn't one of them get shot or something? Like killed?
I can't remember. I don't know. Yeah, that's what you were seeing Fallout.
And the food. This is. Look at this. This is old.
That is old.
Who cares? Just record. I record. You're allowed to record in public.
Yeah, as long as you don't bug people.
Look at that. Just remember that year one. Alright, we'll look at this later.
Yeah, look at later, guys. Wow.
Spoilers.
Some big ones.
Yeah, with no restrictions, of course, and the health,
Water tanks.
issues were not-
Yeah, water
These are water tanks.
A water
So
tank.
these are, provide the drinking water and the shower water as well for the 70 people who were going to be down here. And the hope was the water, of course, would last. And everything would be fine, and they could emerge and rebuild, and everything would be good. Yeah.
Just these 3 for 70 people?
Just these three, yeah.
That's not a lot of water.
That's not a lot.
It's not much, is it?
No.
If you've got a nuclear war going on, that might leave radiation for quite a while, I think.
Yeah.
If the war continues on.
Yeah, you would need more than 3 for 70 people. Like at least
Yeah.
4 or 5,
Well,
maybe.
I mean, we did the maths, and we thought, okay, how long, if they rationed it well, would 70 people last on this level of water? 5 weeks at most.
5 weeks.
Yeah, that's it.
That's not that
More
much.
than I thought.
Well, enough.
I mean, they're big, but
Yeah, they're.
counting the showers and stuff.
Yeah, that's actually good storage.
There is a chance that less than 70 people got to the bunker, so they may have lasted a bit longer that way, you could say. They also have food stockpile down here as well. Every 2 years, someone would come along and take out the food, put new food in, have powdered eggs, dried milk, cans of this and that. So things that would be ready to go here. There was no cooking facilities here. They were using power on more essential things, so they just had things ready to go. And into the 1980s, they were still stockpiling food here in the bunker. We know that. We have the evidence to prove that.
War lasted.
You see
It was
power
going
over
on.
here.
Yes, we still have the Reagan period.
Power
Exactly. So the Cold War, the last activity we have recorded this site is 1990. So we're at the end of the Cold War.
Yeah.
Even though we know most of the activity was going on early in the 60s and 70s, the training, and we also know it was public knowledge by certainly the mid-70s, maybe a little bit earlier actually. So the period of confidentiality was gradually released, I think, and then in 1974, it's in the newspaper that this is here, so it was not.
How did they build it in secret?
Sorry?
How did they build it in secret?
Well, that's the other thing. I mean,
Yeah, that's-
the contract to build the bunker went to a local firm using government plans. The Maglios who would supply, and we still have the Maglios who would supply here in Nelson.
Yeah.
The head of the firm was actually the mayor of Nelson, Louis Maglio. So he would have been placed down here. So maybe he was trying to keep it quiet as well with his crew there. But
Slightly easier if you're the one in charge.
Slightly perhaps. But even still, I spoke to somebody who was later put on the list who said they knew things was happening because people were coming and going, and
Yeah.
you know that's what it in a small town like that.
Yes.
People will
Yeah.
realise something's happening.
Construction work.
Yeah, exactly. And they spent $250,000 in today's money on converting the space. There was a lot of work going on, so it was a big project. So yes, secret, but maybe not secret to everybody. Just saying that.
Yeah.
It's interesting if you're part of the construction crew, but you're not allowed to be part
You
of it.
must be getting paid well and hoping.
Only a certain amount of people. That would be your back
I
of
mean,
the
if this
day.
was just used strictly just for drinking water and not showers, it might last longer.
Yeah, if it was just used for drinking water, you would actually be okay. You would survive. Jeez.
You can't fall out there.
Yeah. But of course, I mean, there was no provision for bunkers for everybody else. It was a case of you go down to your basement, you go to maybe your school. There was some provisions in some of the basements of schools, we know, and or you go into your school desk, duck and cover. So
Nuclear generator?
not as safe as being down here, that's for sure. So one of the other things they were thinking about, well, a few things. First of all, air, of course, because radiation will come through the air if you don't control it.
You gotta purify the air too. Filter it. Try
Yeah,
and filter it.
filtration. So
Yeah.
that was one of the things that all these bunkers have. They have filtration on all the air vents, so hopefully they would be able to survive and not breathe the poisonous air from radiation. The other thing they were also thinking about was power, because if there's a nuclear war, the power will go down pretty quickly, we expect across the country. So they have this, a generator here, to try and provide power for the radios, for the lights, whatever they essentially needed. Here's the fuel tank for it here.
Right.
We have the controls for it over there. It's
Good size fuel.
You see a bit leaky, but it is quite interesting that this generator still works after 60 years.
Oh wow.
This building is now owned privately, actually. It's a consortium of people who own it, and they maintain it. We have the logbook and various controls for it over there, where they've done maintenance work to the generator. And if it's a power cut, and I've been down here in a power cut, this starts working and creates backup generation for part of the building, although not for the bunker location. It's black as day in there. Nothing's working in there. But part of the building, it does still work. Although I also would say it didn't get a lot of use in the Cold War era, we think. Because
No.
of course this bunker was never used for an emergency. There was never a reason to do that. We don't even know if people were staying overnight here. We're not even sure on that. There were training courses, and there were certainly a few exercises going on. Some of them were national exercises where the Nelson bunker was involved with. You would go through scenarios and what to do. But there's no evidence of people spending an extended period of time down here. And if you even look at the clock on the dial, they only got 278 hours at the moment.
Oh, wow.
So
That's not bad.
much in 60 years of
78 hours?
Is it really?
It's not that long.
Not a lot, really. So there we go. But anyway, generally. All right, should we go back to the main room? Check out some more
Where
stuff.
would it vent to?
Sorry?
Where would it vent?
Oh, we'll go outside.
I guess that it's not meant for bombs to actually fall.
Yeah, we went outside. So
The
yeah,
ventilation didn't block as much.
yeah. So hopefully, yeah, they gave us hope coming in here. And it was just becoming out. Yeah,
So maybe if you guys want a picture together at any time, I can take a picture of you guys.
Okay.
Okay.
I haven't taken pictures
movies of your faces.
Yeah.
Virginia and stuff like that. So,
Okay.
yeah.
I want to stay the overnight with my one of my daughters about Sunday, and that was it's quite long. About a dozen girls running around. This is the kitchen, and it's very much as it was again. These cups, these plates, these spoons, they're the original things here.
Oh, wow.
Ready for the people who are going to be eating. Now, of course, they wouldn't want to be doing any washing up, using water for non-essential use, so it's all plastic. There's also no laundry here, no showers for anything other than essential decontamination use. People smoked, as we mentioned. Could have got quite smelly down here.
Oh, yeah.
People getting sick, and it could have got pretty horrible down here, I have to say. But we have, yes, there's the original can opener there, the fire extinguishers, original, and will still work according to the fire service. We've been around to look at our more modern ones. We even have water decontamination tablets. They could have used to put into the water tanks, because these are metal tanks and they don't want water sitting for too long, so that could have helped to a degree. We added a few things in here, the pop bottles and the beer bottles. And as I say, some of the cigarettes, we didn't find them here, but we'd expect they would have been here, or things akin to them anyway. Over here, the table has all sorts of things that we sort of set out. So the people who were going to be down here in the bunker would have probably had some time to themselves, maybe to think about, or not think about what was happening to people they had to leave behind. So we have newspapers, catalogues, games, board games. Over here we do have some facilities that they may have been using, and have certainly things related to the civil defence in that period. There was even a civil defence bulletin across the province there, because almost every community had civil defence people working in them. It was a big part of the community for many places.
No,
in that
no,
period.
NORAD. That's a well-known system.
Yeah, NORAD, of course, NORAD, the early warning radar system.
It's still being used today, like a little bit.
Oh, yeah, certainly, of course.
Yeah.
Yeah, so some of these things are still very relevant to today. Here's a Geiger counter for testing radiation levels.
Oh, sweet.
This is a telegraph key for sending messages out, like Morse code messages, the dot, dot, dash, dash, of course. And then also that we have these as well, which is quite interesting, because there was a ground observer corps across the country. They had people trained to identify aircraft going over. You know, is it a friend, is it a foe? And they have these charts. Here, you see these. So it changes, you can see, as we go along, and you're saying, okay, well, I'm seeing this, what is it? Oh, it's this, oh, it's a friendly aircraft, or is it something that's not so friendly? And do we have to report this to the authorities that we have Soviet bomber aircraft going over? And you even have these little things that you would look at here. So you would look at the thing and you would see, you know, what you're looking at, and then how high it is, and how, you know, how far away it is, so you could report that information when you were looking up and going, okay, so it's got 5 aircraft at 5,000 feet, 3 miles away, so that's
Oh, wow.
over here.
Nuclear winter.
Games, I've seen things.
Just fun stuff back in the day.
More about the Cold War. It's come out of the Second World War, really, where we have the two superpowers, the United States and the Soviet Union, and they were allied to various nations. Both sides had various nations who would
39?
who would be allying with them into the 40s and 50s. So China became a communist nation, just like the Soviet Union in 49. So we have that coming in there, and then of course we have the Eastern European nations here that became part of the Soviet bloc, part of the Warsaw Pact they were called, which is sort of similar to NATO, but the Soviet version of such. And then we also have the NATO nations, so Canada aligned with the United States, and some of the Western European nations, and some of the other nations. And then we have nations which sort of became, well, they became third world nations, they would call themselves. at that stage. It's that term, that third world term, comes out of the Cold War. And one of these nations had recently become free of colonial empires. Some were dealing with internal conflicts. We have periods of Cold War, of civil war, and then they became often battlegrounds in the Cold War. Both sides in the Cold War were trying to influence the people, the governments, trying to control, trying to prevent other nations falling to the other side, if you will. So we have conflicts going on in Angola, in the Middle East, in Malaysia, in Korea. The Korean War was a Cold War conflict where Canadians served and fought on the behalf of the South of Korea, and then North Korea was supported by China and the Soviet Union directly as well. So we have this conflict going on there. We also have the conflict going on, of course, in Vietnam, which is a very divisive conflict. And some of these conflicts and some of these events really affected the Kootenays very strongly. The Vietnam War, especially, I would say.
Oh, that was a bad one.
Well, it was, and even though Canada was not directly involved in the Vietnam War, didn't send soldiers. In America, where America did send hundreds of thousands of soldiers in the end, and it was a very divisive conflict. A lot of people did not agree with the Vietnam War and the fact that they were going and people were dying over in Vietnam. So we have quite an influx of people coming to Canada to escape. Yes, so we have draft dodgers. We have people who just didn't agree with the conflict or didn't want their sons, their boyfriends, their husbands going. So they would come. 100,000, I think, came to Canada in that period. And many of them settled here in the Kootenays. About 14,000, I think.
Oh, that's not bad. Pretty good.
So it's quite a large, especially from California. They came up to here, and because we're just across the border here, because we're away from the big cities, you can hide a little bit in the Kootenays if you want to go up some of those mountain roads and logging roads. A lot of the people were interested in the environment and getting back to the land. The back to the land movement was very strong. So people would go, okay, well, I don't agree with this conflict, and my friends don't. Let's go to Canada, start a commune. And that's what happened. We have dozens of communes here. Or people who just go back to land and live individually. The land was pretty cheap in the Kootenays at that period. There was a lot of land available. A lot of the mines had closed. People had moved away. So there was this opportunity for people. And also, Nelson had a university at that period. There were also like-minded people, pacifist people, already in the area. The Doukhobor community was a large Russian sect who come here before the First World War to escape persecution, to escape serving in the Tsar's army, to be honest. And they come here about 6,000-7,000 and settled in the Kootenays. So we have quite a receptive population to sort of their culture, their interest, their pacifist ideas. Some of the ideas were slightly different in terms of religion and other areas, but there were certainly receptive audiences. There were also quite a few Quakers, again, pacifist people in the area who'd come as well, especially in our place called Genta and other places in the Kootenays. So we have this large influx coming in, and we find today a huge legacy from this population, because a lot of them were alternative-minded. They were caring about the environment. Some of them were physically minded and left-wing. And then we also have people who were artists and architects, poets, quite an art scene who came here. And it's interesting, there was a bit of a conflict with some of the people who were here initially, from some of the more conservative aspects. But gradually, the makeup of the Kootenays and Nelson area and the Slocum Valley area especially changed to become more alternative. We also have a lot of people who are involved in cannabis production. Obviously, cannabis industry today, don't we? This is because of this Cold War conflict, I have to say. It's definitely related. And we also have this great art scene here. So we have all this legacy that we live with today, and that's from a Cold War conflict. Okay, and then we have a few pieces here. This is a piece of the Berlin Wall. Have you heard of the Berlin Wall?
Oh yeah.
You been there? Yeah, the Berlin Wall was built in the German city of Berlin in 1961, and it was built to keep the people of East Berlin in the Soviet zone, but it was a real contentious barrier, and in 1989, the people of East Berlin really rose up and started knocking the wall down, and we have a fragment of it here, and that was often seen as a symbol of the end of the Cold War conflict.
Yeah.
And the fact that the Soviets didn't interfere as they had done in other conflicts in the past and send in the troops and the tanks, but it was a peaceful, largely peaceful ending of that conflict there. Yes, we also have some people here from the Chinese Canadian community.
Yeah.
Nelson had the third biggest Chinatown in BC. Very large. Very large
Yeah.
Chinese Canadian population here. We had a Chinatown just on Lake Street, just one down from Vernon Street where we are today. About 500 people we think lived in that community. And during the Cold War period, the 1940s, because a lot of them had come from China or had relations in China, there was a civil war going on there, and that was again a Cold War conflict in some ways as well, because we have the nationalists and the communists battling for control of the country. Many of the people in Nelson were supporters of the nationalists, so there were, when they lost that conflict, there was a lot of sadness about that in Nelson. Okay, then we also have this photograph in the bunker. So I was saying people smoking in the bunker. People smoked in the bunker.
Yep.
This is 1974, so the Nelson Daily News, local newspaper, did a splash on the bunker about this bunker location you probably didn't know about in the basement of this building. And here's the food packages.
Oh, okay.
Okay. And also from the same group of photographs, we can see here some of the bunk beds in one of these rooms. Probably this one of these two rooms, we think. And you can see on there of the day, Tex Mowat, his name was, on the right hand side there, with the checkered pants. And we have a man with the beard, he'll piping with the big pipe. We don't know who he is, by the way. He's a bit of a mystery. Mystery man going around. Little silly fish on the left. But you can see there, that's what the bunk beds look like in the dormitory rooms. The bunk beds themselves disappeared years ago. We have one very similar, which is set up there from that period. But the actual original ones, I'm not sure where they got to. And also we have a photograph here of people training to use the radios here. And we have a really interesting story with the woman on the right-hand side here, and the other side here. That's a woman called Mickey Lieda. Mickey came to the Kootenays during the Second World War with her family, although not through choice. She was one of 20,000 Japanese Canadians interned in the Kootenays, or in Canada, interior Canada. About 6,000-7,000 were in the Kootenay and boundary area. They came here because there was places where some of them were former mining towns where they were put up, or there were also some tents and camps and shacks, sort of buildings put up as well as other places. But anyway, she came here and stayed in the Kootenays, and then after the war, she and her family remained in this area. And then Mickey got involved working in various government departments, and here she is trained to be in this government-funded bunker. So a bit of a change in level of trust already from the government from just about 25 years earlier. But it's quite interesting on that. All right, we can put a little film on. It's got 7 minutes long. We get to hear from some of the people who were actually in the bunker.
Oh, wow.
And get that. And then afterwards, you have the opportunity to get to go into these